Hey everyone, Amy here, presenter and producer of the Eerie Excursion podcast, the podcast that takes the left turn into the shadows to hear haunted and creepy tales from around the UK, as told by local tour guides and experts. Now, if you're watching this on the day it's going out, very happy New Year to you. Right, well, here it is. It's been a long and windy road, my friend, but we have covered more places this year than we did last year. And I just really wanted to take this opportunity to say a massive thank you for watching, for listening, subscribing. I am just a one-man band, as it were, and it's a lot of work. So I really appreciate you guys hearing the stories I have to tell. And I really hope that you have enjoyed them. So, last episode, we were in Oxford, a city most famous for its university, of course. Now, there is much more, of course, to the city than that, but undoubtedly, that is what Oxford is most famous for. And two out of the three stories of the university does happen at the university colleges. Now, you might be asking, what is a college? I thought that was part of the university, blah, blah, blah. So Oxford is a collegiate university. There are over 30 colleges in Oxford. And basically what happens is when you apply for Oxford, when you get in, you are assigned, I say assigned, you choose the college, oftentimes they're not. You want to attend. You often are living in the college, or your community, your hub is based around this college. So the guide this week was Rob, who is a registered guide in Oxford and has written a book about Oxford's ghosts. He tells me three great stories, two are ghosts and one about a woman who was almost a ghost. The first story, I think, is my favorite because there's just so many layers to it. The sighting takes place in 1947, and it's recalled by a wife of Jesus College's principal. And basically, she wakes up one night to find a strange man digging in her garden. The mystery thickens the very next day.
The grass was not disturbed or anything like that. Very, very, very strange. So he said, there we are, I'm sure you imagined it, and went off to work. She said, I'm going to research this. I'm going to find out what's going on. So she did. She went to the annals and various records in Oxford, including those in the Bodleian Library, and she found out, she already knew this actually, that Oxford was the capital of England during the Civil War, from 1642 to 1646. Very important point in the story, actually, because also during that period, during the Civil War, it was the King's people here, the Royalists were here, the Puritans and so on had London, of course. So during that time, this college that we're talking about now, Jesus College, was reserved for the wives of the important members of the army of the king. So this is relevant to the story, as you will see. So she also found that there was a particular lady here called Lady Grandison. Her husband, of course, was Lord Grandison, and he was a very important figure. If you read about the Civil War, you will come across Lord Grandison. He was injured badly in Bristol, and he had to make his way injured back to here to recover from his injuries. It would have been a dreadful journey, I'm sure. No trains or anything like that in those days. So he came back, and the first place he came to, of course, was Jesus College to see his wife. He knew which room she was in. He went straight there and found her in bed with another man. Good God, this is terrible, isn't it? Not only was he near to death through injury, he comes back to find his wife deceiving him in this way. There was a fight between the lover and Lord Grandison, and sadly, the lover killed Lord Grandison. And they buried his body in the garden that I keep talking about all the time here. So the theory is that he, regretting what did so badly, is coming back as the ghost, and he's trying to find the body of Lord Grandison by digging up holes and so on. But he never will find him.
I just love this idea that I mean, like a lover in a garden is quite romantic, isn't it? Like when you think of like Romeo and Juliet and things like that. But here you have kind of the opposite. I mean, kind of you fully have the opposite. You have a faithful wife, sorry, first of all. And she's watching this long dead lover digging up the grave of the man that he couldn't think of another word other than cuckolded because that's apparently 1500 years old. But that is what he's doing. So there's so many different layers. Like I said, it's just very, very interesting. Let's move on now to the woman who was almost a ghost. Now, her name was Annie, and she wasn't a student because in Annie's day, women weren't really allowed to do much, and especially not study in higher education. Now, the start of the story is very tragic and kind of awful. So, obviously, go and listen to it. But essentially, she was hung for a crime, and then her body is brought to what is now the Museum of Science and History. At the time, it was where medical students watched dissections. And here's what happened when she was on the table.
The students all went up the stairs looking down on the body. She was taken out of the coffin and laid down, and Hattie was about to dissect, and he felt with his finger that her nose was quite warm. So he stopped. She didn't appear to be dead. They burnt feathers, and she coughed. She'd come to life.
So the guy Rob mentions, Petty, was one of the top medics of the time, just for a little bit of context there. And Rob tells me he goes on to nurse Annie back to health, and she dies an old lady, which is just a really nice, happy ending. But after this, she comes back from the dead, this moment where she comes back from the dead. They ask her about the afterlife. Obviously, they're very, very curious. What is heaven and hell like? Because this is a time where everybody is everybody is religious. And she basically just says, I remember going up the steps of her makeshift scaffold. I remember being hung and then blacked out, and I just remember waking up here. So it's just incredible. Honestly, she's just so lucky. Like if it had been another doctor who maybe wasn't as competent as Petty, they may not have noticed that her nose was still warm. So they might have just sliced her open, and she probably would have woken up screaming, because I have heard tales of other people from a similar era do that. But she could have also been buried alive, which is, and I've said this before, it's just one of the worst ways to go, quite frankly. So she was very lucky, and she did, just lead a long life after that. I also assume that she was kind of exonerated after she came back from the dead, because technically she had served her punishment, which was to be hung until dead. And she was dead. She died. Anyway, I do like ending the series on that story because, yeah, it's dark and it's eerie, but like I said, it has a nice happy ending eventually. So that is it for this year. Make sure you go back and listen to the Oxford episode. There's a ghost and an organ, the instrument I missed out in this little short clip as well. And obviously make sure you subscribe below, because there'll be some extra content coming out sort of the end of winter, the beginning of springtime from some of the adventures this year. And then hopefully I will be back in September and we can go on some more eerie adventures together. I wish you all a happy and prosperous new year, and thank you once again.